Good morning, all. I hope everyone is doing well. First, I want to welcome the members of my panel. Jeff Franklin, welcome, sir. Paul Chaplin and Stone Loki, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, welcome. Thank
And
you.
I'll just
Good
take a
morning,
quick
everyone.
spin through chat before I get started here. Mrs. Canuck was first. Welcome, my love. Mark the Infinitely Tired, James Furman, and Yitzy Lemons, welcome. He does so much artwork that is all over this channel. It's not even funny, and I'm so grateful to him for that. Chris
All over
Persia,
YouTube.
welcome, sir. NB Geek. And Thomas Potts, welcome. First of all, I've heard that Salty Trekker, aka Anti Trekker, is in the hospital right now, so we send out a get well brother to him. Welcome, Mr. CCDV, who is in his vehicle.
Yeah, dental appointment today. Very exciting.
Oh, lovely! Jeez. All right, so
Exciting
today's
stuff.
stream is Remembrance Day stream. It's basically the 11th month, 11th hour of the 11th day, which is the end of World War One. It was set up as a Remembrance Day. I can't remember when, but for many years now. So at the top of the hour, which is why I went at 10:55. We're gonna do the traditional moment of silence at 11 o'clock. It's usually when they fire the cannons here, but it's always been 11, 11, 11, and that's when they do everything. So that's why we went a little early. So we'll do that, and then we'll move on. So basically, I've got a couple of things to do with that, and then we'll just break into conversation and talking. I've got a couple of my dad's stories that I always loved when I was growing up, and we'll just go through. And of course, we have Mr. CCDV, who is a vet, and
Don't forget Stone Loki's a vet as well.
Yep, and
Absolutely.
so we've got a few people that know more than most of us, but go with that. And we're just going to have some fun, talk about those who died so that we can bitch about Star Trek, Star Wars, and all the other good, important stuff. But without them, we wouldn't be here to do that, and we wouldn't be free enough to do that. So it is very important to me that we take that couple of minutes and we remember those who didn't make it home. We remember those that were 18, some of them are younger than that, throughout the years, who didn't have to sign up, but they wanted to, and they did. Some of them lied, cheated, and stole to get in, and then they didn't make it home. And their names are marked in foreign lands, and I truly believe they can never be forgotten. Because if we forget them, then who are we? But with that, I'm going to start start this off with a couple of poems and a moment of silence, and then I have a musical package, and then we will carry on with the show. So the first one I'm going to read is a poem by John McCrae. Stone Loki had a part two in last year's, I can't remember which one, but Loki read part of this at one point. So here we go. It's called In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing. Fly scared, heard among the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and we were loved, and now we die in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. Now we'll have a minute of silence. They shall grow not old, as we left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. All right. So, while I get a link sent out, I'll let everyone take a moment to say what Remembrance Day and that means to them, starting with Jeff.
Well, I wasn't in the military, but my dad was. He wasn't in the Navy for very long, but I just, think of the people that have served, what they sacrificed in time and sometimes in their lives so that we can have freedom here and say what is on our minds and have elections and change our country and our world. So I just wanted to thank everyone that has served in the military, that has sacrificed their time, their lives, their efforts for all of us. Thank you so much. Paul?
Absolutely. Well, I certainly think, from what Robert said right at the beginning, that if many, many, many more people thought about what had happened and how many people gave their lives and had them taken from them, if more people in this world today thought about that, then perhaps there might just be a little less strife now. But I am immensely grateful for all those that gave their lives, for the wonderful time that we've got now today, the freedom that we hold so dear, especially in the West. And I wasn't in the regular military. I was in the Territorial Army because I felt that I wanted to do my piece. And I was in for a few years and had some good times, but it was around the time of the Falklands and there was a chance we could have gone to war. And I was a young lad. And you earlier on, Robert, said that many people did everything they could to try and get in to fight. And I remember going with various others in my company to see the captain, all volunteering to go, young hotheads, just wanting to do their bit for their country.
Yep.
So I'm immensely grateful. There, but for the grace of God, go every single one of us.
Absolutely. Loki?
I remember one of the first things I can remember is listening to my grandfather talk about World War II. And both of my grandfathers were airborne rangers. One of them told this story about how after they had dropped into Germany, how they came up on a group of English soldiers basically doing it back and forth with German soldiers. And the first thing he said was, all right, we're going to run around behind them. When you hear the fire, when you hear the gunfire start, come in and we'll get them, we'll get them, you on one side, us on the other side, we'll get them in between. And that officer said, but that's not cricket. And he said, but cricket, but that's what he said.
Yeah.
What he said. This is war, and that's exactly what they ended up doing. And it's that hard charging. We're going to take care of the situation. We're not playing around. We're not messing around. This is life or death. That is the protection these people have given not just America, not just Canada, not just Europe, but the world. They give their lives so that you can enjoy the freedom that you do. And that is not something that you can just have, because having something like that can be taken away. You have to fight for it. You've always had to fight for it, and that's what those people do, and that's why we have a day like today, and that's why each and every day we need to honor these individuals, not just on Veterans Day, but every single day, because your freedom, my freedom, our freedom is the price they paid.
Yes. And it was paid in blood and buckets
Paid
of
in
it.
blood.
Hi, everybody. Did you go over why Veterans Day, Remembrance Day is on 11/11?
End of World War One.
Right, okay. Well, in that case, I don't have to do it. Thank you. I usually have to explain that to people. In the States, of course, yeah, it is. In the States, we usually consider, Veterans Day to be a celebration of veterans who made it home. And we have Memorial Day in the springtime for us. So I was kind of surprised that you did the whole Remembrance Day thing, but then I remembered you're Canadian.
Yes.
Yeah, I figured I'd wear my special hat today. Those are the 4 times I've deployed with the different divisions I've deployed with. First Cav in Bosnia, 3rd ID in 2003 in Iraq. 101st Airborne in Iraq again in 2005. And 10th Mountain Division in 2011 in Iraq. So, woohoo! I've been there, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm home.
Yes. Yes. So are we.
Even if I do have to live in California.
California? No.
Yeah, well, such is life. I'll get back to Arizona someday.
I know that MB Geek had to step away, so for you, but you said something that just makes my heart sink, and it's true. People don't know why they just go, it's a long weekend or it's a day off, or
Yeah, that
they
is
don't
the case most of the
understand.
time.
Like even up here, I mean, Remembrance Day up here is basically where we remember those who didn't make it home, and not just from World War One, not from World War Two, but from every deployment that the Canadian troops have, or any troop for that matter, has done. And people don't know. They're just absolutely clueless, and I find that disheartening. That something as simple as 11/11/11. If you say that to certain people, they have no idea what's so important about that, or that hour, or that day. And it's the day that the Great War ended.
Right.
People died right up until 10:55. It's
a good example of that would be All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fictional account, but it also shows, the horns blew right after the kid got his brains blown out. So
yeah. They died right up until 10:59, and it was senseless, absolutely senseless. But they wanted to grab as much ground as possible before the ceasefire.
Well, the whole war was senseless, wasn't it? The Great War.
Well, there's that. So MB Geek, I'll ask you the same question. What does Remembrance Day or Veterans Day in the States mean to you?
To me, and I'm having a hard time with this because I've only been a veteran for a couple of years. I retired from the Air Force. Yes, I'm wearing a Marine Corps hat because I was a Marine for 4 years and I served 16 years in the Air Force. What today is to me, me and Sergeant First Class here and Paul, we're the fortunate ones. We made it home. So many people, there are people I believe that I know didn't make it home. And what I mean by home is they were able to get out of the service and still be alive. Whether it was combat, a training accident, whatever you want to call it. When I was in the Marine Corps, we indexed an entire exercise because a mortar round went the wrong way and killed one of my fellow Marines. The day I went and got my blue card, the day I retired, what we call the blue card when I retired from the Air Force, I was so happy. I was like, it's the day I get it. I get to the gate. And this, there's shit going on all around. There's more security. I'm like, what the hell's going on? We had a plane crash. A young, he was in his 20s, captain pilot, father, husband, made a small pilot error, clipped his wing on, I guess, a radar or something. This was at Shaw Air Force Base. You can look it up. But that's not the worst part. He ejected. There was a mechanical error. His chute didn't deploy. He died. And I had to pull over to the side and spend about 5 or 10 minutes, I don't know, crying my eyes out because I'm like, why did I make it?
Yeah.
I am not. I was like, this guy was young. I didn't know him. All I knew was a young man with a wife and child, so full of promise and future. And because of a mechanical issue, he was dead.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's why I say, when I've been posting on Twitter and Facebook, this is not, in my opinion, a day of celebration. This is the day of reflection, humility, and us veterans being humble. Because the Billy Ray Cyrus song, I was listening to it earlier. I listen to it every year at this time.
Some gave all.
Exactly. Me and CCDV, we gave our best. We gave some. But I know CCDV and I know, and my wife knows, my father knows, my uncle knows, my grandfather knows. Some gave all. We wrote the check for the full amount, and some people we knew had to pay that check.
Had to cash it.
Yeah, but none of us came home complete.
And speaking of that, and what Robert said earlier about today, some people look at this like just a long weekend or a day off. I want to tell you something. When I moved from Texas to Missouri and moved to Branson, I'd never seen a town that had multiple veteran centers. I had never seen a town that had American flags lining the road. And this is just an off day. Yeah. This isn't today. This is just an off day. I wore my bomber jacket with my patches into Walmart one day just because it was cold. It wasn't today. It was just a cold day. I wore my bomber jacket. I had my patches on. 3 employees at Walmart stopped me to say, thank you for your service, sir.
Yeah.
It wasn't Veterans Day.
Right.
You can't get a motherfucker at Walmart to stop and help you find an item. Yet
Yes.
these three guys, these three gentlemen stopped me to shake my hand and say thank you for your service.
Yes.
I have never lived ever, and that includes where I am today. I have never lived in a place that was more welcoming to veterans, more honoring to veterans, that cared as much about their veterans as I did when I was in Branson, Missouri. I've never lived in a town that honored its veterans like that ever, and any day of the year, not just today.
You know, one of the things, Loki, that us veterans know that as serving that people may not understand, and I understand this. This is okay. We don't just have one job. Now, we have a primary job, but I'll give you an example of the many other jobs I had while I was a Marine. I was a 0621 field radio operator. I was the hazmat NCO. I was the battery inventory manager guy. When I was in the Air Force, I was a 3DO X2 cybersecurity. I was also your CPR instructor, your first aid instructor, your physical training instructor,
Jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd rather be a jack of all trades than a master of one thing, because you know
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
point is when we have our jobs, people think it's not 9 to 5, and it's not just one job.
no,
We have multiple responsibilities that fall into those jobs, and I know the Sergeant First Class here knows that.
Yeah, I had a few extra duties I had to perform.
yeah. Well, for me, Remembrance Day was something that was drilled into me because my dad, who was born in 1928, he would always remind me of his brothers, but he wouldn't talk so much about himself, because my dad, in his words, got off easy. My dad joined the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry in '44 and was stuck on home defense. All his brothers were overseas. Home defense to him, as he put it, was a joke. He was in Winnipeg, Manitoba. The Germans were nowhere near here. He was stationed at Fort Osborne Barracks that is no longer there. And my dad would tell me, he says, my military service, he says, and why I don't talk about it, I got drunk a lot. He says, he used to make the joke, I go on guard duty. He says, guard duty consisted of going up to my post, waiting for the MPs to pass, leaving my post, going to St. James Hotel, getting sloshed, getting back to post before I got relieved, and going to bed. That was my military service. And then my dad was supposed to be shipped out. And this is a family mystery that even my dad never figured out until the day he passed. My dad was supposed to be shipped out, like his brothers before him. And it was the day before his mother found out. And his mother attended the base. He says, I don't know who she talked to. I know she was pissed. The next day, now you've got to understand, my father was 19, 20 at this point. 18, 19, 20, something like that. He's a farm boy. He was in the best health of his life. Within 48 hours of his mother hitting the base, he was honorably discharged for medical reasons.
Yeah, that's like the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
All three of his brothers died. That is a possibility.
They were still alive. They made it home.
Right. No, what I'm
three...
saying is one male member of the family is often excused from service if their older brothers all go.
Yeah. So to my dad, that's what he chalked it up to.
Right, guys?
What's
that? There was a ship that had, and I don't remember the exact history, but remember,
yes. It went down with all members on
All
board.
of them.
Yeah.
And all the brothers were on the
Remember
ship.
that.
Yeah.
All the
But-
brothers were there.
Yeah. So my dad, but my dad told the story of my grandfather, my dad's dad, that it's funny to look back on, in a way, because my dad would always tell me about my grandfather, who had passed long before I was born. My grandfather was in World War I, and he went overseas. He came back injured. My grandfather, to his dying day, and if there's anybody from Germany here, I apologize, but my grandfather called the Germans a pain in the ass till the day he died. And as far as my dad was concerned, he was allowed to call them a pain in the ass because that's where they shot him. So,
Do you know where the term, maybe you guys don't know this, but the term devil dog actually came from World War II for the U.S. Marine Corps, which the Germans called us Tufahunda, devil dog. And they actually did that because we were so quiet in our, and I did a stream earlier today about 10 minutes, and I just said, we're not a monolith. CCDV and I, we can disagree on things. Stone Loki and I, Paul, we can obviously all as veterans, all us in the military, we disagreed at times. But when the shit hit the fan and the mission mattered, that shit went away like magic.
Absolutely.
It wasn't important anymore. We could hash that shit out later. But when the shit hit the fan, boom.
all hands on deck.
Yes, all hands on
I
deck.
mean, to my dying day, I'll call you Chair Force and double puppies and stuff like that. But when we're out there, when we're in the field, I'm not calling you bubbleheads or squids or anything like that. I'm calling you what you are. You're a Marine, you're a man, you're an Air Force airman, whatever.
Sergeant, remember, it's not that you have to like the guy. You just have to trust him to have your back.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a perfect example. When I was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, I had this other Lance Corporal. We did not get along at all. We butted heads left and right. And I became a corporal before him. And I tell you what, he when I gave him his proficiency and conduct review, he was shocked. He's like, "Why are you rating me so high?" I'm like, "You're the best person under my leadership."
Yeah.
I had 5 people, and I said, "You're the best." I said, "When I got promoted, you put your personal feelings aside, and you are performing excellently. And my personal feelings for you have no relevance on how you're doing this mission."
Yeah.
And I actually, my leadership was like, "You really want to give him these high marks?" I'm like, "He's earned them."
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with our personal issues. It had to do with solely the fact that he did his fucking job and he did it better than anybody else. And I said to him, when I gave him those proficiency and conduct remarks in the Marine Corps, said, "I would be proud to pin you as an NCO if you make corporal." I wanted him to make corporal because it wasn't about me. It was about the fact that he was a good guy. And once, we were equal rank at the time and we butted heads. But once I was supervisor and I ranked over him, there was no issue. I didn't give him shit because we didn't like each other.
Yeah.
I gave him the same orders I gave the other 4 members of my field team, and he always performed the best. He got the highest marks out of anyone I had. He got 4.848.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was shocked. he thought I would mark him down. I'm like,
Yeah, because that would be the
I'm not
traditional
petty.
thing
I
to
was
do.
like,
yeah.
I was like, buddy, I was like, Lance Corporal. I'm not a petty person.
Yeah.
My personal issues with you in the past have nothing to do with me
Yeah.
supervising you now. You have
Yeah.
performed your duties to the best of your abilities and to the best of our mission.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
my
So
priority.
I would like to hear from Paul, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was gonna toss to Paul because I believe Paul
no
has,
problem. I just wanted to
has
mention.
a couple of. Also, he has
Actually,
a
with that,
wonderful
guys,
picture that I'd like to
I-
see again because it's,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So
I got to go to my
CCTV?
appointment and fill out paperwork.
yeah,
so-
no problem, Mr. CCTV.
Brother,
Thank you for
Thank
stopping.
you for joining
also,
us.
It's
I
always good
do-
seeing you, brother.
I do
Always
want
good
to
seeing
promote.
you.
I do want to.
Absolutely.
What do you know? What time your stream is later, Mr. CCTV?
It'll be 6 p.m. Central. I'll be
Okay.
doing it from the VFW
Yeah.
in Coulterville.
Yeah. So at
Awesome.
6 p.m. Central, Mr. CCTV will be live on his channel from the VA. Please do tune in
VFW.
if you can. The VFW.
Yeah.
If you can, that'll be a good show. And Mr. CCTV, give them hell.
Thanks. I'll try.
All right, take her easy.
All right, guys. Bye.
Take it easy, brother.
See you later, Mr. CCTV.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, before I show the picture, I just want to raise a point that I've seen in the chat, actually. I mean, one from James Furman saying, watching young people on TikTok answering questions about the war. Anne Frank is apparently a YouTuber, and Churchill was some old fat dude in Germany and France
Yeah.
during the war. Now, perhaps one of the reasons is, I mean, we don't teach it properly to the young kids as we should have done. Perhaps the passage of time has dimmed people's memories and the relevance of it, but also because here in the UK, in the week today, we do have a 2-minute silence pretty much across the nation nowadays. So even when I was young, that didn't seem to happen so much. But we have Remembrance Day on the Sunday after the event.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps
Okay.
we ought to actually do it on the day and make it more relevant so that people, especially the young people, understand a lot more of what went on.
Absolutely.
I think as time goes on, we're forgetting more and more when we should really be remembering more and more.
Absolutely. I completely
I-
agree with that.
That's great points, Paul.
Robert, do you mind if I respond to that to Paul?
Just give him a minute. I want to. I do want Paul to have a moment because he has a family member that was in a very very interesting group, the
Yeah.
SOE.
Yes.
What I'm going to say is I'm going to add weight to what he's saying.
Yeah.
But by
So-
all means, yeah.
Yeah. By all means.
Okay. What happens is when it becomes history, people start to romanticize about the wars. They don't remember the true horrors. When the last World War I veteran dies, that's it. When the last World War II veteran dies, that's it. When the last, in my case, 19 of my 20 years, or sorry, 18 of my 20 years, 19 of my wife's 20 years, when the last person who served in the Afghan war, that changes because it's all it is third party perspective. And I remember, and you know, this is a perfect example, Paul. I'm going where you're going here, and I want to say why that adds weight. This last 9/11 that happened, I said, you know, I was at a gas station and they were like, "How you doing?" I'm like, well, "I'm not doing so well today. Today's not a good day for me." And they're like, "Oh, why not?" I'm like, "It's 9/11." And they're like, oh yeah, okay. Just nonchalantly, like it didn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is really what happens sometimes. I remember my grandmother My grandmother was alive and a young child during World War II when Pearl Harbor was hit. And my grandmother was alive during 9/11.
Yeah.
And she was like, she saw two tragedies that caused America to go to war.
Yes.
And the way she talked to me about it and what it felt and the emotions. Now, her father was drafted for World War II.
Yeah. Many were.
His company, his company gave him a deferment because he was a railroad engineer and a copper mill person, and he was He was willing to go.
Yeah.
He was willing to go. What happened was the deferment was because he was more important to the war effort.
Yeah.
there
Back at
for
home.
his
Yeah. That
expertise.
happened a lot. Yeah.
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 He was more important for his expertise as a manufacturer because they stopped making steel for railroads. They stopped making wood, and they were making bullets and bombs and shit.
Yeah.
They said, we need
Yeah.
this man's expertise here.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, Paul, I do want you to take a moment to remember a member of your family who was a member of a very interesting group of lads that don't get the acknowledgement that they should a lot of the time, because a lot of their stuff that they didn't happen as far as history is concerned.
Yes.
A lot of it is still locked away. A lot of it is still hush hush, even now in 2021. And the group that I'm talking about is the SOE. So I will let you take it from there.
Okay, yeah, Churchill's Secret Army. This is a picture of. I hope you can see it
Yep.
there. It is my father-in-law, though I never actually met him. He died just a couple of years before I met my wife, and that's him receiving
Make
a
his
medal.
picture bigger, Robert.
I will do that right now.
Yeah, Robert, blow that up.
That's him receiving a medal from George VI. And he was drafted into the SOE. And even to this day, my wife knows actually very little about what he did. He was always very secretive about it. And, there's almost a little bit of Walter Mitty about him. You don't know right from wrong. You don't know if he's spinning you a line. That's what she said. They were never quite sure, but that's what it was all about. It was all about secrecy.
Yeah.
And it's a shame I haven't got it with me now, but she hasn't got that many possessions from him. But we know he was dropped into Burma because he had a neckerchief. And because they didn't want to carry maps or anything in case they were caught, this neckerchief is a perfect map of Burma.
Yeah.
And we know that obviously even after the war, for quite a few years afterwards, he was still in Churchill's army and spent a lot of time in Singapore and the Far East, supposedly achieving the rank of lieutenant colonel. But his military records were kept secret under the 70-year rule in the UK. And even though my wife is trying to get hold of them now, we believe there's not really a heck of a lot in there. And we wonder why that is.
Yes, because a lot of it, especially the SOE, even to this day, a lot of what they did is still classified.
Robert knows.
Yeah.
What does SOE stand for those of us who don't know?
Special Operations Executive.
Okay.
The SOE were right after Dunkirk. And basically what they were was the British were not ready to do a full-scale invasion of France yet. So the SOE were tasked with doing raids. So like the raid on the heavy water institution, the raid, any raid that took place between 41 and 44, most of that would have been the SOE. So they were in charge of sabotage. They were in charge of getting being dropped into France and meeting up with the resistance, the French resistance. A lot of the things and a lot of the exploits of the SOE are still classified. Which is, if you think about it, it's kind of overkill. We're in 2021. Most of the
about
people,
80 years later.
yeah, most of the people of the SOE are sadly gone.
But as you were saying beforehand, Robert, perhaps not the people that might be affected by it the very most. Certainly not.
Yes, such as certain people in power. Like for instance, one of the other ones that is still highly classified is the Trader King. A lot of his stuff is like the actual. There's a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of speculation. There's not a lot of fact, and the reason there's not a lot of fact is it is by the crown, locked away in some corner somewhere in the Tower of London, and one of these days they'll let it go, so that we have the facts, because we don't. A lot of the stuff that is written is hearsay. Some of it is fact, some of it is fiction, some of it is best guess, but that led to the monarchy we have now. The other thing I want to mention briefly is there is a vet that is not on this panel today, and he was instrumental in starting this channel, and that would be Richard Simpson, Admiral Doom.
Rest in peace, Admiral Doom.
Yes.
He served, and we should take a moment to remember our brother who's not here and could not be on this panel today. He was my brother and a good friend, and we have in the catalog a live stream where he spoke about his tours, and the funny story that he would always remember is he was sitting in his office on the aircraft carrier to overhear the radio say that his aircraft carrier had got sunk and that he should be at the bottom of the water by now. And he was kind of confused because he's like, wait a second, we got what? So
I'm sorry. I'm going to mute myself because I'm going to laugh my ass off.
So it was always a funny story that he would tell, that he's sitting in his office and he's overhearing the radio that his aircraft carrier got sunk, and he's sitting in the aircraft carrier quite afloat, and quite unsure why they are reporting that he got sunk. The other part he would mention is when that he accidentally almost got sunk by friendly fire. By the Germans. So yeah, that was always fun. But he goes into more detail about it in that live stream. And if you get a chance, do take a listen. It is in the archive. And again, I do too every day. So, remembering those who aren't with us today, there's so many. And some of them you wouldn't even know because they don't talk about it. That's the one thing that that generation, and especially World War II generation, they didn't talk when they got home. They didn't brag. They didn't, well, you owe me this because I did this. That wasn't the mentality.
I had a grandfather and an uncle, both who served. Grandfather never spoke of it at all, not once.
Yeah.
My uncle, all he would ever say is, "I drove ducks," which obviously
I think the reason why,
that's it.
As a veteran, and Paul, I think as a fellow veteran, I think the reason why we don't talk about it with, let's be honest, civilians, they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
and we wouldn't be able to explain to him. By the way, Robert, I can't pull the picture off right now. I still have Richard's picture on my. I still have Richard's picture taped on my chest. Not my chest, but my chest, my dresser drawer.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'm going to get Rule 189 bannered.
Yeah.
I only knew the guy. I only knew Richard for maybe 6 months, maybe a year. I'm not sure the timeline, but my God, what an amazing man!
Yes.
And amazing.
Yeah,
I
that's
still talk to his
an
wife.
understatement.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I
Paula
can't
Simpson, yeah.
articulate him. And I know his wife Paula lives in Indianapolis, and I live in Graysville, Indiana. So I'm only a short time away, and I'm really hoping at some point we can find a time to get together because I'd love to hear her stories. Also, just for fun, who doesn't miss Locutus Cam?
Oh yes, Locutus Cam. Yes, that was always fun. The cat would take over the Short Distances Band Theater on a daily basis. Yes. The other
What
thing
cats do.
I will mention is because it is November, so January is coming around quick. On the 1 year anniversary of Doom's passing, we will have a live stream. It's a Saturday.
Shoot me the link on Twitter, please. I
Yeah.
want to be a part of that.
We will have a stream that day. Paula Simpson will be here. We will, and then that night's karaoke will be dedicated to Richard as well. It'll be History with R&R Remembers Admiral Doom. So I hope to see you all then. But also, more getting back to the topic of today, Remembrance Day to me, to give you an idea, I used to do security when I used to work. I did it for 15 years. And one of the places that I would have to patrol is Brookside Cemetery, which is the biggest cemetery in Winnipeg. It has a military wing. And every Remembrance Day that I had to work, which seemed to be every one of them, I would time my patrol to be at 11 a.m. so that I could drive through the Field of Honor at 11, stop at the memorial, pay my respects, get back in the car, and go. This one Remembrance Day, I was driving through the Field of Honor, and I've never been so angry in all my life. It's Remembrance Day, November the 11th. I'm driving through the Field of Honor. I get to the World War II monument, that it's way at the back, and the flags are at full mast.
No.
I have never been so angry in all of my life. I wrote the mayor's office because the city controls that particular cemetery and raised hell.
Rightly so.
Because of all days, that day, the flag should not be at full mast in the Field of Honor.
Completely.
Ever.
Completely.
I got a call from the Legion that controls that cemetery. Now, up here, the Legion is our Veterans Association. And the young lady that is talking to me said something so stupid that I couldn't get angry. Have you ever had a moment where somebody said something so stupid you couldn't answer? Well, Loki will be able to say yes.
A couple of days.
So
a couple of days ago.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so
absolutely,
this
I
is
have.
this is the line she gives me. She goes, we understand that you were upset because the flags were not at half mast. I says yes. She goes, well, the flags were at full mast because that's a sign of respect. After I almost threw my phone, I had to explain to the young lady that no, the sign of respect is to dip the flag, not at full mast. Full mast is not a sign of respect in any freaking country, including Canada. And whoever told you that is stupid. Now,
Is a
please lower the damn
fucking
flag
idiot.
next time, or else. They also got a whole bunch of shit because I guess it was election year, and yeah, they got in a whole bunch of shit. Next year, the flag was at half mast, but I couldn't believe it. Of all places for a flag not to be at half mast on Remembrance Day, the Field
It's
of Honor.
unbelievable.
You know, Robert, when I went through my grandmother when I was very young, before my grandmother took me a lot of places. She took me to a veteran cemetery, and each veteran there were flags all around, and there was American flag. There were Canadian flags too, to honor the Canadians who had served and died and that were buried here in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a young kid. I was about 7 years old, and I was like, "What is that flag?" And my grandmother would tell me it was the Canadian flag.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay." As the Canadians fought in it, and I don't mean that as an insult.
Yeah, I get it.
mean, I was a young child, and I didn't know anything about Canada back then. But it was very interesting. It's like when I deal with assholes who say people are flying Confederate flags. And I'm like, no, they're not. And they're like, oh, yeah, they are. Here it is right here. I'm like, that's not a Confederate flag. They're like, oh, really, motherfucker? What is it? I'm like, that was a Kentucky military battle standard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the
Like,
other thing
how about
too,
you actually, and then I will send them the link
yeah,
of the 3 flags that the Confederacy States of America did. Yes, at one point they did do it in the last 2 they did the stars and bars, but the full stars and bars is not the Confederacy flag. So nobody flies a Confederate flag in America. They fly a Kentucky battle standard, and they look at me like I'm out of my mind. I'm like, you know what? You got all this fucking technology in front of you. How about you Google the shit and Google a Confederate flag and figure out the fuck you're talking about?
yeah. All right. So going back to
Sorry.
one of
Really
the things-
quick before I get out
Yeah.
of here, I want to say something real
Absolutely.
quick. We all know veterans that have had difficulty returning to what civvies call normal society,
Yeah.
and call it fatigue, call it whatever you want to. Especially on a day like today, growing up with the veterans that I grew up with, some of them returned to society and were able to get back in and be productive. On the other side of that, I watched multiple adults from when I was a kid not be able to do that successfully. They could go to work, they could come home, but I remember my best friend's dad, completely wasted, completely drunk, completely wasted, sitting in a heap crying and talking about how he watched his friend blow up right in front of him and how he was holding pieces of him in his lap. He would talk about the fact that he was stuck behind BC lines for 3 months before he was rescued. He was crawling around in tunnels with these asps, these snakes. Eventually, his marriage imploded. He would go through these up and down moments where he could be functional and then he would not be functional, and it affected everything. That is also a reason why we have days like today, is for people like that, people who have fought, who have killed, who have watched their friends, their buddies, their best friends gone in front of them in an instant, and they can't quite come back from that trauma.
Yeah.
And it is our job to be there for them, to listen to them, to try and be as supportive as we can, because they can't quite return to who they were before they served. That also is a giant sacrifice that they have made. They have sacrificed that basically their mental faculties
And still giving.
and are yes, and are still giving. Yes,
Look,
yes,
before
sir.
you
Paul.
go,
You know,
after you finish,
one-
I do want to say one thing to you because I have a story that would relate to what you're talking about.
Well, hold that thought, because I'm gonna add one. We had a friend of ours we used to drink with and party with when I was much younger. He served in the first Iraq War, the Gulf, and when he came back, he was fine for the most part, but he would have dreams and nightmares. And he got a special license, which in Canada is a big deal. He had a right to carry. And under his bed was a Desert Storm Eagle. Under his pillow at all times. He had to have a gun on him, or he didn't feel safe and he'd start to panic and he'd start to freak out. He had
Security.
to have that gun. If he didn't have that gun, he was scared. He was worried. And he couldn't get his mind around he was back home and he didn't need the gun. But in his mind, if he didn't have his 45 right here, he wasn't safe. And he needed it. And growing up, I remember when we'd go to his house, there was an unwritten rule. When he's sleeping, you don't knock on, you don't go into his room unannounced, because if you do, you're gonna have a gun drawn on you. Simple. And it wasn't that he didn't like you. It wasn't that he was mad at you. It's if he's dreaming of his something that happened over there, that's where he's waking up to, and he's still there for the first couple of seconds. And I remember there was a lot of there's a lot of respect that went going on there. So we look back and we just look at, a lot of us think that they go over, they come home, and if they come home, they're fine. But to Loki's point, they're not.
No.
Our veterans come home, and I'm going to wrap this up because we're at the hour mark. But they come home, and they're not the same man that left, or woman. They're not. And you know what? It doesn't matter if they were in the heat of combat, or sitting on a ship, or at home, for that matter. Because what we don't know, the stuff we don't know would fill books.
Amen.
And what we're told is only half the story. And honestly, we look back and we look at, well, we won, so what's there to talk about? There was a lot that goes on, even in the Gulf, even in the Iraq War, the recent one, Afghanistan. And I mean, what's happened over there now is just so disheartening.
Please don't.
But
bring up Afghanistan.
but I want to end this on a note of remembrance. We remember those who've fallen. We remember those who are not here today. We remember those that gave their lives so that we can bitch about Star Trek. We can bitch about Star Wars. We can bitch about the things that we like. Because without them and without their blood, we would not be able to do so. And I think if we're really honest with each other, without those men and women, we would be not the people we are. Without those men and women giving up their lives, we would be lost. We would be under some dictatorship by now. And we wouldn't be free to bitch about Kurtzman. We wouldn't be free to bitch about the latest stream of Star Wars. We wouldn't be free to be able to complain that wrestling sucks. We wouldn't be able to complain that AEW is a joke. We wouldn't be able to complain that Star Wars is going downhill. Because without those men and women, we would be lost and without freedom. Freedom is not a word. Freedom is something that is earned, and it's paid for in buckets of blood. Buckets and buckets of blood. Never forget. Always remember. And until next time, thank you and good night.